Good Tuesday to you, everybody in Com 785. Welcome to week boom 4. How you doing? I hope you had a restful and even some time with your family. Memorial Day, as we remember those who've given their lives and of themselves for the protection of our country and our freedom. So welcome back. Okay, let's get things in the right order here. Rocky Mountain National Park, highly recommend it. If you haven't been able to visit any of the national parks, please do so. We have some beautiful, beautiful country in this country. Okay, for this video today, we're going to take a look at the readings from last week and your answers to them. Now, please make sure, excuse me, that you go and you look at the first video that I posted. I made it yesterday, in which I talk about the material and the assignment for this week. Very important that you do that, right? Because this week, instead of discussion questions, there's another essay for you to do, and it's over in the discussion board for week 4. So I'm not, you can read all about it there. Before we get to the material, though, from last week, I want to talk to you briefly about the material, the essay from week 2. Okay, because there's a trend that I've noticed, or I shouldn't say a trend, because 1 week does not a trend make, but there's something that happened there that I want to make sure that we get out in front of. All right, I gave you some specific parameters, boundaries for this essay, and one of them was that your essay had to score 8.7 or lower on the Flesch-Kincaid readability scale. Okay, that it had to be between 500 and 700 words, that it had to be free from grammatical error, from punctuation, that needed to be well composed. There were a number of you that didn't hit these marks, either one or several of them. Now, I'm going to be giving you feedback for your essays in Blackboard. Okay, where else? In the discussion boards in Blackboard. All right. And so here's what I'll do. I'll give you the assignment like, I did yesterday. All right. I'll give you the time frame in which you have to do it. All right. Then I'll grade it. And if you're not within the parameters, like 8.7 on the FK scale, I'll give you 1 week to fix it. And if you don't fix it, then you're only getting half points for that forum. And for week 2, I think less than half of you went back and fixed your essay. So the other half of you are only going to get half points for that forum. And after the 2 weeks have passed, the forum is closed for points. Now, I'll keep it open so you can read what you wrote and what your classmates wrote. But in terms of redoing something or resubmitting something, can't do it. Okay. And there are 2 reasons for that. Number one, and I should say, first of all, it's not that I don't want to read your stuff. I do. It's not that I'm not here to help you with constructive input. I am. All right. But there are 2 reasons that I'm doing it this way. Number one, in the marketplace, the place where you are likely to and you can make a good living in PR marketing or in the not-for-profit world. All right. That the requirements on you as a communicator are driven substantially by 2 hard and fast guidelines. Number one is the guidelines that the organization sets out for you when you go to work for them. They want certain words used. They want certain grammatical construction. Some of them are more particular about them than others. That is, these parameters, right? That's the first set. The second one is the deadline. And organizations are unforgiving about you missing a deadline. If the press release has to be out before the event and you don't, you send in a first draft and it's no bueno, and the person who reads it says, no, it's got to be like this, this, and this, or it doesn't meet the guidelines, and they send it back to you and you don't hit it, you're probably going to hit the door. That is, they will ask you to leave. And that's just the business. Okay, so that's the first reason that I'm doing that. This is how the market works. The second reason is, as communicators, and this is our business, I believe communication is a craft, and crafts are only developed and perfected as we practice them. And it's just something that you do. I was out this weekend during Memorial Day in an event, and I was talking with someone who asked me what I did, and I said I'm an instructor in communication department. I'm a writer. I said I do a lot of writing, and she said, "Oh, I've always wanted to be a writer. I've written this and this. What?" It's funny. She said, "What's the secret to writing?" I said, "There's no secret except for sit your butt in the chair every single day and just do it." And I'll be very honest with you, crew. I mean, are there days in which I don't want to write? Of course. But do I do it anyway? Of course. Why? It's my job. Do your job. That's it. So you've just got to discipline yourself as an expert in communication to develop your skills as a communicator constantly. So the deadline is the deadline, and the craft is the craft. Hit the deadline, develop the craft. It's just that simple. All right. So that forum number 2, points wise, it's closed. Let me repeat that. Forum number 2, the points are closed. If you didn't follow up with the feedback that I gave you, you only get half points. Okay. And please, you can't say, well, I didn't see it. And okay, you've got to be coming in and checking Blackboard and checking the messages that you get. So for this week, watch that first video that I posted yesterday that explains the essay for this week to you. If you have any questions, any whatsoever, call me, email me. Let's get on the phone. I've got a couple of you already that said, "Hey, I want to talk to you." I absolutely welcome that. I'll give you as much time as is needed to make sure you understand the assignment, because in any class that I do, you figuring out what it is I want you to figure out is not part of the class. This is not an Easter egg hunt. I will tell you what it is we are up to and what it is that we're aiming to do. All right. So watch that first video, read the assignment, and let's get crack-a-lackin'. Okay, let's take a look at the questions from last week. That is week number 3. I'm not going to go over the first one, that is exercise, because you could have picked a number of things here. I'll tell you what I will do. We will go over the substance of this question, that is analytics for various online entities, social media entities, during our residency in Virginia. And I'll make a separate video this week, which we talk about. I'll tell you a little bit about the residency. It's June 15th and 16th. You have to be in Virginia. We'll be meeting in the communication building. They said they've reserved a room for me, but they haven't told me what the number is. And so, I'll pester the department and say, "Hey, what room are we meeting in?" And I'll send that all to you long before you get there. I know it's just about 2 weeks away. Get you a nice packet. But basically what we're going to do is on day number 1, for both days, we'll meet at 9:00 in the morning. We'll go up to about lunchtime, 11:30. We'll have lunch. Then we'll come back and we'll meet in the afternoon till, we'll be out of there by 4:00. Okay. And this will give you time to look around, enjoy Virginia Beach, which is a beautiful city. If you're there with your family, you can spend time with that. All good. So on day number 1, I'm going to present to you a more detailed picture of each of these 3 major fields that we're talking about this semester, that is PR, marketing, and not-for-profit. And specifically, what does the job market look like? What are the requirements? What are the salary ranges? What's the growth projections, and all of these things, so you can make a decision about where do you want to steer this doctorate in strategic communication degree. Okay, whether it's teaching it or working in the field. And so I want to give you the information that you could use to make a decision about doing, a final project. And so when you come out of Regent, you have something in your hand. You have a portfolio of work that you can show an employer if you are not already working in the field of communication, or if you are and you want to make a lateral move. All right, so we'll do that. We're going to go over your semester projects. That is, you'll be presenting what you've done, and we'll critique each other, and we'll take a close look at our writing and what it is, in the course of the semester project that we need to do to improve. Okay. All right. So more to come, or more, specifics for the residency. All right. So we're going to skip that first question. That is an exercise. All right. Let's go to question number 2. Let's see what you had there. The question was sampling error. Okay. Now, I asked you to reference Wilson et al. On which sampling errors should you worry about most when constructing a market survey. Let me say just very quickly a little bit about you and sampling and the communication field. I know, because I teach it in the spring, that quantitative research methods is a tough one for a lot of people. I know this, but I want to strongly encourage you and emphasize to you to learn quantitative research methodology. It's used so extensively throughout the field, not only in academic research, but in practical market research. And you do not have to be, like a triple black belt in quantitative research to get along and utilize this out in the marketplace. All right. If you can wrap your head around conceptually and execution wise, that is, what it means and how you do it, things like a t-test or an analysis of variance. Really, I would say there are 3 statistical tests that if you can come to understand what they mean and how you do them, and then of course how you interpret the results, you will do just fine. And those 3 tests are a t-test, an analysis of variance, or an ANOVA, and a linear regression analysis. All right. You understand those and you can work with those, you will have no problem out and about in the marketplace. All right. So given that, the question is, what sort of sampling errors should you be on the lookout for? Alan, let's see what you had to say. According to Wilson et al., the sampling error that communication professionals should worry about most when constructing a marketing survey is non-sampling errors. Correct. That is, the error that plagues the data most is the lack of data into the data. I say that right? Or back to you, Alan. Non-sampling errors are mistakes made in designing and implementing a questionnaire that may include definitional differences, misunderstandings, misrepresentations, as well as coding errors and/or problems that negatively influence response rates. Okay. So let's unpack that just a little bit. What does he mean by that? Okay. So first and foremost, people now are used to surveys. Okay. And so they're taking them a lot. If you have questions that are confusing to them, or they don't understand what it is you're asking, the likelihood of them, they'll first skip that question, then the likelihood of them dropping off completely out of your survey goes way up. So a lot of how and what kind of data comes in to your survey is dependent upon how it is that you structure the questions of your survey. It's not uncommon for marketing surveys to see a drop-off percentage. There's people who start the survey and then don't finish it, as high as like 15%. All right, that's not uncommon. If it starts creeping up above 15%, and I have done market survey work, in which it's I see the drop-off rate around 20%. I go, whoa, time out. If I see a high drop-off rate, I immediately start to suspect that there's something wrong with how the survey has been constructed. There's something wrong with the questions. There's something wrong with how it's being presented. Maybe the online module that we were using isn't working smoothly, and people push next and it's not going next, or they wanted to go back and it's not going back, and they just forget it, and they bail out. Okay, so yes, Alan, correct that the number one sampling error that you need to watch out for is a decline in people that take the survey. In other words, low sampling. So you finish up, you say, Wilson further stresses the importance of making sure questions are worded carefully in order that the biased response from participants, that there's not a biased response, from participants, overall non-sampling errors need to be carefully avoided. Correct. Okay. Excellent question. All right. Let's take a look at question number 3 because we skipped number 1. According to Cialdini, what relationship between distance, physical, and psychological? What is the relationship between distance, physical, and psychological, and persuasion? Daryl, let's see what you had to say. Cialdini argues that there is a proportional relationship between distance and desire. If something is closer to you, it is more desired, and if something is further away, it is less desired. Correct. In some ways, this begs the obvious, but we don't think about that sometimes as communicators, especially in public relations and marketing. Now, if you're in the relationship business, and I don't mean like you're in a relationship, but let's say you're a dating coach, okay, which is a form of communication. Hey, we're not knocking them. And or someone who works in the business of physical body language, how to interpret body language. All right. One of the cues that's often identified and discussed to see if someone has an attraction to another someone is to watch, one, how physically close they lean into that person, and then watch if they're touching that person. Maybe they touch them on the sleeve, maybe they touch them on the shoulder or the elbow, or on the thigh. Okay. So physical proximity is an indication of interest. Now, the interesting question that Cialdini is getting at is, how do you flip that equation? That is, can you reduce physical proximity? If you reduce physical proximity, does that raise interest? Because we, looking at the other way, we know that reduced physical proximity means raised interest. And the answer is yes. Yes. So let's say you're doing this in survey form. Obviously, you can't get somebody to lean into a survey or get any closer to a survey. Aha! But you could present it to them on a device that there's the capacity to be closer to it than a PC. Okay? Or you can word the question, and that will lead us to our next question. That's called shunting or shooting. Shunting that suggests close proximity, like read the following carefully, or look closely at this, and quite literally, people will like, oh wow, really? Okay, so that the interesting aspect of this phenomenon is it works both ways. Okay, back to you, Daryl. Cialdini offers the example of leaning inward to hear a message. Leaning inward reduces the distance between the hearer and the speaker. The distance reduced by leaning in makes the information seem more valuable and therefore more desirable. And he gives the example. Cialdini gives that really interesting example of a therapist who's trying to get people to pay attention to certain things. And literally, we have a biblical expression for this. Does someone have ears to hear? And you may be aware of this within your relationship, your marriage or otherwise your relationship with your children. I would advise you as master communicators, doctor, communication, that you're becoming, discern whether somebody has ears to hear a message at a particular time. Make the deciding factor as to whether you're going to deliver a message. Can they hear it? Not, I want to say it. Because you may want to say it. I mean, who doesn't want to say what they want to say and be heard? All right. But in the business of communication, your objective is that they hear it. And if they're at a point, you can read this, the visual cues, how their body language, their tone, the words they're using. You could say it, but they're not gonna hear it. That is, it's not going in anywhere. Wait, don't say it then. Okay, you will communicate more effectively if you wait. And so, in the case of Cialdini, remember he gives this example of a therapist. It's like, okay, I really got them to get them to pay attention to this, but they don't pay attention. He would wait until a truck, or his office faced a street with traffic, and he'd wait till some traffic was going by that made noise that would require the person he was working with to lean in and listen to him more closely. And by extension, they paid attention to that message. Okay, very interesting. All right, question number 4. What does Cialdini mean by positive test strategy? Imagine you need to draft a PR statement to convince a group of people to accept something they might not want to do, like, pay more for their city taxes or something. Okay, or water bills. I'm trying to adjust my chair back here. Explain how you might use positive test strategy in writing your press release. Ooh, I have an error there. My mistake, not press release. Press release. Okay, well, let's see. Let's see. I think Billy. Let's take you. I think you went first. No, actually, it was Dominic. You went first. Let's take you first. Cialdini's positive test strategy means to focus down a certain chute. He goes on to explain that your focus group will continue down a certain direction once you start them moving. I think we left out a word here. An example of asking someone if they are happy or to rate their happiness is a great illustration to explain positive test strategy. When a person is rating their happiness, they will think about happy moments in their life. If I had to draft a PR statement, convince a group of people who suffer from alcohol abuse, okay, I would ask questions like, do you or someone you know suffer from overconsumption of alcohol? It will allow the target audience to think back to times when they have overconsumed alcohol. The goal would be to get them to recognize this behavior, then offer them ways to help drink in moderation. Okay. All right, good. So you got the basic idea here. Now, you see this used in polling a lot. Shunts, okay? Or in the more extreme cases, it's sometimes referred to as a push poll. That is, you're not actually asking a question, or the pollster is not actually asking a question, but they're rather pushing an idea on the audience. This is used extensively in politics. They call you up, and just make a note. Watch for this during this coming campaign season, as presidential contenders are now declaring themselves as candidates for their party's nomination. And so they're going to be fanning out across the country, hiring communication companies to query the public about their opinion concerning, this issue or that. But they're also going to be hiring communication companies to prime the mind of the public to be receptive to an idea or a platform position that they have. And the way that they do this is they'll call you up, and the questions that they have are in fact questions, but their purpose, their structure is to get you to think about an issue in a way that the candidate wants you to think about. Now, am I criticizing this? And push polls are not exclusive to politics, by the way. That's just an area in which you find them a lot. I have some ethical issues with push polling and shunting chute, putting someone down a chute. So I don't do it. All right. I can't think. I was trying to think as I was designing this question, because this is such a common practice. If I've ever been told explicitly to do that in the jobs that I've worked, and I can't remember a time when I had. Partially because I have not, I don't do a lot of political gigs, but political organizations. I've worked alongside individuals who do have that do have they're sort of in charge of the political side of an organization. So I've seen it happen. I've worked as the head of fundraising for the state chapter of a national pro-life organization for a while, and we had a governmental representative, someone that worked with the legislature. So I watched what he did, but that wasn't my role. Okay. So all right, excellent answer, Dominic. Okay. This week, just essay. If you have any questions about it, please. I guess we don't do this anymore, do we? What's the symbol for this? Like, that seems goofy to me. Anyway, call me, email me. I want to make sure that you understand what it is you're being asked to do. All right. Okay, everybody, keep up the great work. Watch for a video this week on our residency in Virginia Beach. I have a room reserved for us. I just don't know what the room number is, but don't sweat that. They'll have that sorted out for us long before we get there. And I'm looking forward to seeing all of you. Okay, take care, everybody. Wonderful week. I'll see you on Blackboard. God bless. Bye-bye.